Hi, I'm Gemma, and this is a chat with Gemma. So, I have just finished reading the Kevin Federline book. If you don't know who that is, it's a man who was married to Britney Spears, and he's the father of their two boys. So, first of all, what a foul mouth. And this is a guy who prays for Britney every day, he says. With that mouth. The second thing about it is it's like a little unpleasant glimpse into the showbiz world. And, you know, it's information you could probably do without. They're pretty shameless in their behaviour, the both of them, and the sort of people that they hung around with. I don't know how they avoid jail because they take so many drugs, and they all sort of keep together and nobody dobs anybody in, and the police obviously never work out what's going on somehow. Don't know how that happens, but anyway. And then there's the sexual side of it. There's just no morals at all, And the other thing is the amount of abuse that her children went through at her hands when she was not in her right mind. And it seems to me that she was probably showing enough signs of instability that Kevin Federline could have worked out that it was probably best if they were kept away from her. But at the same time, he did want her, and I think he still cared for her and wanted her to have contact with them, but it sounds like it was a really bad idea. And he sort of acted surprised when he found out some of this stuff later on. I think, I don't know, like probably the rest of the world could have worked that out, but he was granted full custody of the boys at a time when he was still going out and using drugs, illegal drugs. And so how that ever happened, I don't know. He should never have been given full custody, I don't think. But I'm not saying that he doesn't love his boys. He seems to love all of his children very much and is doing his best, certainly now, to be a good father. I don't know whether he still takes drugs or not. But I don't find any difference between him and Britney. He's no better than her in my book. And he's, a robust man. He's probably just his body's been able to process these substances better than hers has. She's always been very, slender. Anybody in the business has to be this thin. So she's always been like that. So her body wouldn't have processed that well. And, one of them is just more unlucky than the other, if you ask me. And from what I've seen of her, she seemed to be mentally okay when she was. We didn't have the Mickey Mouse show in Australia at that time. We used to have it years ago. We used to have it back, the 60s or something. But we didn't have it with. I don't think we had it with Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake in those days. But from all I can gather, she was perfectly normal. So what happened to her? Now, in the early days of this, people would sort of, in the media, would say, maybe she's got bipolar or, these sort of things. And I just think most of these journalists hang out with these people and know exactly what they're up to, but maybe they didn't. So, the mountains of drugs and alcohol slipped by them, did it? But then, a lot of those entertainment shows, I think they speak in code to kind of say things like that when everybody knows what's wrong with the person is drugs. For example, when Carrie Fisher died, and she just finished filming a Star Wars, episode or whatever it was in Australia, and they said, oh, she had a heart attack on the plane. Turns out she took heroin and then she fell asleep like this. So her chin was tucked down and she suffocated herself to death. So, I think they try not to get kind of in trouble with, being sued with defaming somebody's character. So they don't quite tell the truth as they know it, I suspect. But Brittany, I think, has either got brain damage from all the... And mind you, I think she's probably mixed things together. So she's had alcohol, then moved on to drugs, and then who knows what she's taken. She might have taken prescription drugs or mixed drugs together. Who knows what she was doing. And it's possible that she's given herself permanent brain damage, because it seems like as if this just keeps going on. The sort of insane behaviour seems to be just continually hanging around. And either she's just not really sober much of the time, and so it is just drugs, or there's permanent damage there. And so I think that, the future for her, I just can't imagine how it will be good given the situation. But what about the parents and all of this? Apparently, Brittany's father was an alcoholic. And so I don't know what home life was like for her. Who knows what went on. But it seems as if this girl was just... now, I'm not trying to kind of defend her at all, but when she was a girl, she seems to have been kind of maybe thrown to the wolves a bit, because apparently she was performing on stage, as a solo artist from the age of 16. So, and if you know anything about showbiz, which I'm not pretending I do, but one thing I do know is that there are extracurricular activities that happen between shows. So their life isn't just being on stage, there are other things that go on. And she appears to have just been left to it. I don't know, maybe she got to the age of 18 and told them all to nick off, but was she chaperoned before that? Were people that were going to be her crew and people around her, were they carefully chosen? Again, I don't want to say anything that might cause legal problems, but, she certainly got right into the sexual immorality. She was even caught by Kevin doing something bisexual, lesbian behaviour. She sounds like, well, if you believe his side of it, it sounds like she was definitely seducing him, not the other way around, but then he let himself be seduced. And this girl was like, she was just behaving like somebody who had no upbringing whatsoever. She used to talk about how she wanted to get married a virgin, and I can remember her sort of being on ET or something, saying, she wanted to, hold off until she got married. Well, I gather that didn't happen. So I don't know how hard she tried, She said she'd try. She didn't say she'd do it, she said she'd try. But I know Mother used to speak of religion, quite openly. I don't know about the father. I haven't really followed her, so I don't know perhaps as much as other people do. But her mother seemed to be quite a Christian person. So how this girl has gone so completely off the rails is, I don't know, it doesn't seem that she was properly protected. And Kevin says to say he prays for every day that she'll be all right and that his sons can finally have a decent relationship with her because they don't bother to see her anymore. But that just sounds like something nice to say. I don't think that's possible. Maybe he's hoping for miracles. And then there was the Free Britney movement, and I agree with what he says about that. I can remember when that was going on and sort of shouting at the TV, said, "Don't you people know she's insane?" And, that's just my word for it. Maybe a psychiatrist would say she's not insane. But you know what I mean. She was not in her right mind. And somehow the conservatorship was removed. Was it because of all the people with banners and putting all this pressure on? Because it absolutely should not be. People shouldn't be able to wield that sort of power. People who did not know her, were not, related to her in any way, probably never met her, didn't have access to all of her medical history, were not there when all the different crazy things were happening. And people need to have boundary lines. They need to mind their own business, for one thing. But all right, they got their way, or somebody got their way, and she was released from it. And then she marries this guy who just looks like, well, I won't say what I think of him because I don't want to get sued, I've discovered... Anyway, you get it. So, yeah, I think it's pretty disastrous for her because, they're saying she looks like she's under the influence now when she's doing her little videos and things. So, was she off drugs before that under her father's conservatorship? I think she probably was, but I wasn't there. And I'm talking from a long way away, so I don't know. But it sounds like as if, a change has happened, which is unfortunate. And if I'm right about the brain damage, while it would be good to get her into some sort of facility and treat the drug use, unfortunately nothing's going to undo the brain damage. Although I think Dr. Phil's got access to some sort of treatment now where they do things where they electrically sort of stimulate parts of the brain, and maybe it helps a little bit, I don't know, and tries to calm down parts of the brain that are too active and, like anger and things, and then tries to resurrect parts of the brain that are lying dormant. There's parts that when we control ourselves and things like that. So maybe there would be some treatment available for her. I don't know, and she's got money. But I do think that the conservatorship should be reinstated. I don't think it should be with her father, though. And he's very unwell now anyway, and in a bad state apparently, so he wouldn't be able to. But I think it should be done by somebody probably who's completely outside of the family and not emotionally involved in any way. Can't be sort of manipulated and all of that. And somebody who's just very, objective, very professional, and cares about this situation. So I think that would be good if, moves were made to get that back. I think Kevin's attitude is that it probably is too late because how would that happen, sort of thing. But I hope somebody does do that. So in the meantime, we've got this woman, and I think people do very much care for her and care about her, but it seems like she kind of sacks people all the time. So I think she's just a very isolated person who's completely unable to look after herself. So there she is. I mean, I suppose she's got some staff around her, I don't know. And she's endured, a lot of, I suppose, humiliation and embarrassment at people knowing all of her dirty laundry. And she's still being talked about by people like me, and criticised a lot, and then other people are drooling over her and thinking she's wonderful, which, neither of those things are probably that healthy for her. But anyone who's not, a gold digger or, I don't know, a hanger-on or whatever you like to call such people, will anybody really care enough about her to step into that world or that bubble that she's in and try to do something for her? I mean, I guess you're going to have to do something legally to be able to do it. But if somebody's not in their right mind, sure that something can be done in that respect. But it's not a world that I like to, I did read this book to the end, but it's not really a world that I like to know about. So, I'd prefer not to know what goes on. But, it does go on, doesn't it? So, okay, it raises the question for me, and, I do know that ordinary folk who are not in the public eye and don't have lots of money and whatever and all of that can also get themselves into maybe not exactly the same situation, but similar situations. And I do think that certainly I find it very hard when people are judging me and criticising me and all of that. So a private person they might have people around them, and that's upsetting enough, and just your family or friends or something, somebody says something critical to you can really upset you for weeks. But when you've got the whole world, not just America, the whole world knows the existence of Britney Spears, and so, to endure that from a young age, some people are saying good things, of course, and lots of people are saying, oh, I love you and all of that, but on the other hand, the negative things always kind of drown that out. So I think that's really hard to deal with, and probably part of the reason why she resorts to drugs. But, how many other people in the world are just unknown, quietly, silently going through similar stuff because of the damned satanic illegal drug trade? And, they're in this stressed state all the time. They can be very angry, irritated, just not feeling good, on edge, and then they're extremely high and then extremely low, and helpless to look after themselves and all of that. And, I think that sort of person, when they get to that stage, becomes uninteresting to everybody. Even their closest relatives are just not interested in entering that world. The quickest way for an alcoholic to make friends is to drink with people. And then the quickest way for an alcoholic to lose friends is to become an alcoholic. So, where he's like, oh, yeah, have a drink. Come on, have a drink. Oh, you're not going to have a drink. Oh, come on, have a drink, have a drink. But then when that person turns into an alcoholic, everybody's out of there. All the friends have disappeared. So, how many people have that sort of, I suppose, love, fortitude to step into that nightmarish world that this person is now in, through their own fault, of course, and, they don't deserve any sympathy, none at all. but they are now helpless. So I think they should be helped because they're at a point where they can't help themselves. They're like a baby. And, you know, how many people have that sort of, you know, character that they can do that sort of work? I think you probably have to be a fully trained psychiatrist, and relatives and friends are not that. Dr. Phil's often saying to people, this is outside of your pay grade, you know, and that's true. You know, people can get to a point where even those that love them the most are just unable to help them. So who is going to help them? Are they just going to be left to themselves to get worse and worse and worse? Who knows what the stories are out there? And of course, a lot of people live alone nowadays. And I remember reading something lately, particularly in England, this was, where, you know, you've got a lot of these little, you know, flats, apartments, where people with not much money all live crowded together, and they find that people die in these flats, and because they've got nobody cares about them, or, you know, rings up to see how they are or anything like that, finds out for, in some cases, a couple of years. So you would think they would smell something, but I don't know. Maybe they keep checking the, you know, the sewage and never find out what's wrong. But there was one woman who she was dead for 2 years, and it's a modern problem now. So it's a very distressing thing that I don't think anybody's really doing anything about. And I can't help noticing that in these stories, there's always somebody to, you know, find these people drugs. So there's always somebody willing to help them out by giving them drugs. So what a foul world. There's nothing funny about this. And yet whenever I hear a late night TV host mention, you know, something about drugs, everybody hoots and laughs. You know, really? About a thing that's a tragic thing. It's tragedy. Alright, I hope you're well. Sorry to be such a downer today. And bye for now.